What's up, everyone? This is Dariusz Kobarczyk, co-founder of AIMP Poland, JS Poland, and AI Poland. Welcome to my first episode of AI Master Podcast. Today, we have a special guest straight from Tokyo, Japan. He is an technical solutions consultant at Google DeepMind, speaker, AI enthusiast. Ladies and gentlemen, Jetha Chan.
Great. Glad to be here, Dark. This is great.
For those who don't know yet, please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, actually, it's a great opportunity. Right. So my name's Jetha. I work out of Japan, at Google's Japan office. Recently transferred into DeepMind. A few reorganizations had the AI developer relations unit sort of move between various parts of Google, and now we're in DeepMind. As a technical solutions consultant, it's very similar to developer relations, and actually my team is mainly made up of developer relations specialists and engineers. I tend to focus more on finding really high-value partnerships and unlocking high-value things for the community as well as for Google. This sort of the short version is that in those sort of in those big meetings, unlocking that value, I represent Google to the partner, and then when we've decided what needs to be done, then I represent the partner inside of Google. When it comes to AI, there's so many. Everyone wants a piece of AI.
What excites you the most about the current state of AI development at Google?
Well, I think, we just had the Gemma 3 launch, right? Just a few hours ago.
Exactly.
I think it's one of the most powerful models out there. I think Tris Markington was saying that it's the most powerful AI model that you can run on a single GPU or TPU. I think that's true. I think what excites me the most, though, and particularly with my work with the various partners, is sort of helping people build on top of Gemma. And I feel like things like AI Singapore's work with Sea Lion and things like Insight's work with BGGPT over in Bulgaria. It's the first national AI chatbot for their citizens in Bulgarian. There was a time when people outside of the Anglosphere, of course, the sphere of English-speaking people, right? There's people that they had to wait for people to care about them and oh, your minor language, we'll get to you eventually. And then sometimes it never happens, right? Whereas now, particularly in the open model ecosystem, you can build on top of Gemma. You don't have to wait for someone to say you're allowed to. You can take the tools and do it yourself now.
AI is evolving rapidly now. So how does Google balance innovation with responsible AI development?
That's a really interesting question. And not to make too light of what is a very serious topic, I feel like sometimes people wish we didn't care about responsible AI development. But we do, and we care about it very strongly. We have this thing that's called the Responsible Generative AI Toolkit that we released as part of the Gemma releases. And that sort of It helps you with debugging prompts. It helps you with debugging models. It helps you to understand the safety of prompts as well as outputs, inputs as well as outputs, I should say. And it sort of helps you be responsible yourselves as AI developers in the community. So I would say, it's a balance, right? Obviously you want a very powerful, an AI that listens to you and knows what you want. But we have to balance that against things like, obviously safety. And safety comes in many different types, though, very different forms, very different standards. I come from Australia, but I live in Japan now, so my idea of safety is different from you. As we were chatting earlier, you're from Poland. Your cultural context will be different from mine. Will be different from my superiors who are in Mountain View, California. So I feel like one thing that's great about the open model ecosystem is that we provide the tools for you to decide what's safety and what's safe and responsible for you. What does that mean for you? And being able to fine tune things like Shield Gemma and Shield Gemma 2, I think that it opens the world up to not just any particular company's definition of safety. It can be your cultural standard there.
Open source AI models like Gemma have been gaining traction. What's driving this shift towards open models?
I think there's two things. I feel like the first one is that sometimes people just don't trust a large American company. Oh, sorry, I'm going to get in trouble for that one. Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes. But I mean, jokes aside, I think like depending on the company, depending on the user, like, you know, there are certain times where trust is fine. Like, I mean, like people have a Gmail account, people have an Instagram account, whatever, and that data lives on some server somewhere. But let's say that you are, I don't know, a dentist or a doctor, or maybe you're not even that. Let's say that you're a bakery, a boulangerie or something, right? Maybe you have really proprietary data that you don't want to share with anyone. You don't want to share it with anyone. You would rather it stay controlled in things that you've decided. You don't need to worry about someone training on it later. You don't have to worry about any of that. Well, I think that's what drives open models a lot of the time. People want to have something that's theirs.
How does Gemma cooperate with other open AI models in terms of flexibility, performance, and accessibility?
Yeah, I think we're right now the number 2 open model out there, and like I think in terms of efficiency, I think we take the cake right now. It's always important though, and this is part of the problem with living and working in the open model space, is because like marketing or whoever will be like, oh, we're the best. This thing is so good. It's like, yeah, it's good for like a day, maybe a week, maybe a month, and then our friends over at, I don't know, Meta or Anthropic or DeepSeek or whatever will release something, and then suddenly the crown will change hands. So the way that I like to think about it is that whenever we do a release, like today, it's the best that Google can do right now. This represents and we always make sure that when we release at that point, it's the state of the art. So I think like, in future, maybe the crown will change hands. Maybe there'll be some new IT model that's like incredible, but that won't change the fact that whenever we release a Gemma, it's the best that Google can do for you in that moment. It's the best performance that we can give you. It will be state of the art. And I think, I think I can stand by our achievements and our contributions here. And I think a lot of people can too.
As you said, Gemma 3 was released like 3 hours, like something like that. Can you tell us like 3 main points? What is different between Gemma 2 and Gemma 3?
The big ones are multilinguality, multimodality, and I think a longer context window. Let's start with those 3. So multimodality, this is a big word, this multi-mode, right? So Gemma 1, Gemma 2, they were text models. And there were, of course, we had things like PolyGemma that were built on top of that, which extended it. So it was more of a vision language model situation. But Gemma 3 now is, with the exception of the 1B model, which is text only, it's a multimodal model which can take both text and images as input. And there's been a lot of work done there to implement this sort of like pan and scan algorithm where you can sort of pass in an image of fairly arbitrary size, and it will be sort of like chunked up into tiles kind of inside of the model and sort of reasoned about in that. I shouldn't use the word reasoned. That one's very, very load bearing, but sort of analyzed, I guess, in that way by the model in chunks. Whereas something like a PolyGemma, like you would have to, it doesn't have that pan and scan ability. Like the whole image would have to be resized down, and you'd lose detail, and that loss of detail would reduce the model's ability to really think about things, right? The second one, obviously multilinguality, as we were talking about just earlier, and as well as outside the studio, multilinguality, it's so crucial. Like you're not always going to have, the world is not entirely English, right? Or is entirely any one language. Being able to support lots and lots of languages is important, but I think it's also important to be able to handle multiple languages in the same sentence. This is something that we see. I have a friend, she's Japanese American, like code switches all the time between Japanese and English all the time. And if you're not fluent in both languages, you're not going to be able to keep up. So that you might be like, what is that? I don't know. It's a real issue, right? And another example there is, for say in India, people might not necessarily speak perfect Hindi. They might know their own dialects, and they might switch between Hindi, that dialect, another dialect, and maybe English all within the same sentence. And how do you, as an AI practitioner, build a product that can deal with that situation? And I think that's why multilinguality is such an important thing. And the third thing, long context window. I mean, like, so a context window, I mean, you know what a context window is, of course. That's like the memory, the short-term memory of a model, right? For Gemma 1 and Gemma 2, it was quite short, and now it's like something like, 15 times longer? As people have been asking about this for, at this point, I was about to say years, but, it's only just been a year since the release of Gemma 1, right? So, but people have been asking for a long time. It feels like years, it's only been months. And it's just really great to be able to sort of meet that request finally.
What are key advantages for startups to use an open model like Gemma?
Right. Well, the most important one is that because it's going to be built on your own data, it's going to be something that you own. And I think like when you're a startup looking to sort of like what kind of I'm not really in the startup world, but they call it alpha, right? What kind of edge do you have? I think having something like that can be a key differentiator for you if you're a startup. I think there's also like a cost part to it. Sorry, I could feel like some sort of like weapons satellite, like sort of like locking on to me. It's just like, no, Jetha, you should be making them like, we should be making money from every request. But the other thing is just quite frankly, like an open model, you choose where to run it, right? You can run it on your own hardware, on your own cloud, or maybe even on the devices of your customers directly, right? So like, as opposed to a hosted model where, you're going to be paying per API call. And like, let's say that you were a dentist or something, right? And you made a dentistry app. Every time the user uses some sort of AI powered feature, you're going to be paying us some money. I mean, if you want to do it, let's set up your billing account. Let's go. I wonder that might not be the right fit for your company. And if it is, then there's really powerful stuff on Google Cloud, and we'll be very happy to to guide you through it. But I think that one's a really big one. Being able to have control over your costs, of course.
So, what level of technical experience is required to effectively fine-tune and deploy Gemma?
Oh, this one's so interesting. I was at a Google for Startups event a few months ago in Tokyo, and we got almost this exact question. It was about half and half engineers and founders, and like there was this yawning gulf between the questions that we would get from each. So we'd have really hardcore questions about fine-tuning and hardware and this sort of thing from the engineers, and basically no one else in the room could keep up. But the most important question, when we got this question, it was the most important one because we realized that a lot of startup founders, they want to understand, they want to use AI. They know about the hosted models like Gemini, they know about the hosted models like, your Claudes and your whatevers. But they also know about open models, and it's interesting, but they themselves as a founder, particularly as a non-technical founder, they don't know how much expertise they need. Do they need just a CTO? Do they need a CTO and maybe like a team of like 3 ML engineers? I think it depends. It depends. I would say start with a technical CTO, it's a technical co-founder. I would be surprised if you needed more than 3 ML engineers, but it's going to depend so much on your use cases. Maybe you don't even need a fine tune. And certainly we put out so many resources, and it's never been easier to learn about this stuff yourself. So who's to say what you need?
For startup looking at to adopt Gemma, what are the most important things they should consider?
Most important things to consider about adopting Gemma. That's a hard one, I think. Yeah. I think understanding exactly how much inference is going to be happening. Sorry, inference is a very complicated word. I dislike this word intensely. I don't know if were you in the Monday session when I expressed my dislike for this word, but it's a very complicated word that just means to guess, right? Guessing.
Yeah.
Because people call AI spicy autocomplete. It's guessing the next token a lot of the time, right? So it refers to the running of an AI. So how much is the AI going to be used by your customer? I think before you get into whether it's an open or a closed model, you have to take that into consideration. I would say Gemma is probably the one that you have to not think about the least, but it's the one that's easiest to start because it's so efficient. Like our 27 billion parameter model. Well, our models are just so efficient, right? So like, I think, I forget who, I think it might have been Leo earlier today. One of my DeepMind colleagues was saying that Gemma 3 12 billion parameters is like in some ways better than Gemma 2 27 billion parameters. And Gemma 2 27 billion parameters was already within striking distance of Llama 3.170 billion. So these numbers, I'm throwing billion this, billion that. Like, what does that really mean? That means how much memory does a model need? How much hardware does a model need? So that the reason I say Gemma is so easy to use is because these things are so efficient. And compared to the competition, like they hit so hard, they're so powerful for how light they are on hardware.
Jetha, thank you so much for today's podcast. It was a pleasure to host you here. And I hope it's not the last time we talk about AI. For all our listeners, please subscribe the channel, smash the button, ring the bell, and see you in the next podcast. Bye.